In this video, I'm going to be discussing how I would approach achieving my dream physique if I had to start from square one all over again. So I'm going to cover three main points in this video, which is essentially just the foundations for building your physique. It's going to be very beginner friendly, so if you haven't putting yourself out there into the gym or anything, this is just perfect for you. So I'm going to be covering calories, what exactly that means, how to calculate it, everything you need to know about that, your diet, and your training. Three most foundational things to building your dream physique. So first and foremost, why should you be listening to me? September 2025, I was weighing 54 kilos. I was basically in a rut. I had lost all the progression that I had made prior, and currently I'm sitting at 62 kilos, which is the heaviest I've ever been, but also the best I've ever looked. Still on the process to building the absolute physique, which I want to be at, which I will be at the end of this year. But I'm going to be teaching you guys exactly how to get here in a significantly shorter period of time than it took me. So, on to point number one. You need to understand what your maintenance calories is. This is the only way you can approach either bulking or cutting, right? For myself personally, it was bulking because I come from a hard gainer skinny side. So, if you are skinny, you're going to be bulking. If you're skinny fat, you're also going to be bulking. If you are bit overweight, you're going to be focusing primarily on recomposition, which is basically trying to maintain the level of weight that you're at while losing fat and turning it into muscle. So, to calculate your calories, go to calculator.net and use their calorie calculator. It's very simple. You just pop in your age, your height, and your weight. Once you do that, you press calculate, it will give you your maintenance calories, and all it will show you is mild weight loss, and extreme weight loss. So if you're on the skinny fat side, obviously you want to put it the other way around. So for example, if your maintenance shows us 2,200 calories, mild weight loss would be 2,000 calories. Put it the other way around, 2,400 is mild weight gain. And just give or take 500 calories surplus is what's considered like a normal gain or loss. So that's about 0.5 kilos per week. Extreme weight gain or weight loss is 1,000 calorie surplus or deficit. So, for example, 2,200, extreme weight loss, 1,200 calories per day. I don't recommend it. Extreme weight gain, 3,200 calories. Honestly, you can do it if you have an extremely active lifestyle, which I will get into in a moment. So, it'll ask you your activity level. Try to be as honest as you can with this. If you live a quite sedentary lifestyle, put it as not very active or literally sedentary. If you are more active, you want to pop that in as well. Otherwise, you'll make slow progress. So, if this was me starting all over again, I would be weighing, let's say, 52 kilos, 167 centimeters in height. I would put active because I work 6 days a week and I'm training 3 times a week. I'll go into training in the last point. So I'll put as quite active or just above moderate because I am quite active. And the reason this is important is because if you are active or quite active, your maintenance calorie, your true maintenance calorie will be much higher than what's actually displayed on this calculator. So for example, my maintenance calories is 2,250, give or take. But because of my activity level, I'm definitely sitting around 2,750. That's how much calories I burn through. So I eat about 3,200 calories per day. That's how I've been eating for the last 6 months, give or take. And what that's allowed me to do is put on about 0.5 kilos per week. So that's 2 kilos every month. That is why activity level is important. Okay, now to point number 2. When it comes to your diet, the best thing that I could do for myself personally is choose staple items which you can rinse and repeat at least 6 out of the 7 days of the week. 90% of the time you're going to be eating the same things again and again. Just change up the way you're cooking it, change up the seasoning, etc. I'll give you guys a list of the stuff that I would recommend personally if you're on a bulk. If you are on a cut, I'll have to make a separate video on that because I'm going to be honest, I haven't done a cut yet. I will be cutting past midsummer. So, to start off the list, quite simple. Meal 1, very simple. You want to have between 6 to 8 eggs per day. This is easy, 50 grams of protein. You're getting a good amount of fat, etc. And honestly, you want to stick to eating as much healthy sources of food as you can. Hence why I said 90% of the time, 6 days of the week. So, You got eggs, first meal of the day, 6 to 8. Then for what I have as another meal, I have as liquid calories because I'm bulking. I have a mass gainer shake which comes up to 1,200 calories. The eggs are about 500 calories, right? 1,200 calorie shake. What that contains is I have a mass gainer powder from Optimum Nutrition. I have one serving size. So it does recommend two, but I'll pop in one. I put that with 50 grams of oats, 15 grams of peanut butter, and I'll pop in my creatine in there as well. I have 5 grams of creatine. So that's my mass gainer shake. That's 1,700 calories from those two meals there. And then for dinner, what I tend to have is I either have chicken thighs or high fat percentage mince. You want to have that if you want to bulk because it has more calories, it's more calorie dense. The reason I have chicken thighs over chicken breast is because it has more fat, which means that it's more calorie dense. If you're on a cut, you want to use chicken breast instead of thighs, and you want to use lower fat percentage mince. So for cooking the eggs and the mince, you want to use butter because it has fat. Fat is good for you. And that is dinner. So for dinner, I'd have that usually, if I'm having chicken, I'd have it with a packet of rice, about 200 grams, 250 grams of rice. If I'm having the mince, you can either have that with rice, or you can have it with another form of carbs, such as brioche buns, or what you can basically have burgers. And that meal would usually come up to about, give or take, 700 to 800 calories. So you're about 2,500 calories. And then for your fourth meal of the day, this way you can have a bit more flexibility. For myself personally, what I would either do is, if I haven't hit my protein requirement from the other food, let's say I had 6 eggs, I had my mass gainer shake, and I didn't have as much chicken or mince, you can have another protein shake, which is not the mass gainer shake. You can have the protein shake. You can either have 1 scoop or 2 scoops. That's anywhere between 25 grams to 50 grams of protein. So, talking about hitting protein and calories, when it comes to my diet, the main two things that I tell myself to focus on is quite simple. Focus on hitting my calories and focus on hitting my protein, and hitting it as cleanly as possible. So 3,200 calories every day, and because of my body weight, I'll aim for about 150 grams of protein. The actual minimum that I should be getting in is about 125 grams, 130 grams. I put myself in a slight surplus, so that way I'm never in a deficit of protein, so my body is capable of recovering and repairing it, which is very important if you're trying to build muscle. I forgot to mention, what you're having your shake with, or what I'm having my shake with, is whole milk. You want to have whole fat milk because, again, it has more calories. This is if you're bulking. If you're cutting, use semi-skimmed milk or lower form fat versions of milk if you want. But I'd still stick to whole milk because I just think it tastes better. Okay, now on to the final segment of this, which is training. So, I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of how I'd approach training if I was to start all over again, and I'm going to keep it quite simple. So, I got trained 3 days a week, and that's because I am bulking. So, on those 3 days, I always start off every session with my compound lifts. So, on the Monday, I'm starting off with my bench press. So, I do incline bench press, etc. before I go into any sort of isolation work. When I'm training my compounds, I'm training reverse pyramid training style, which essentially means I'm starting off with the highest weight, and then for my second set, I reduce it by 10%, and I'll do a few more reps, and then for the third set, reduce it by 10% again from the initial weight that we started with, and do a couple more reps again. And then after the compound movements are out of the way, you want to go into your isolation movements. Isolation means, for example, a bicep curl. You're isolating your bicep, so that's the only muscle that's really being targeted from this movement. With a bench press, you're hitting multiple muscle groups such as your chest and your triceps. So when it comes to isolation movements, you want to have more sets, so essentially it's more total volume, because they can take a lot more of a beating. When you are training, you want to train near failure, or even to failure, as long as it's safe to do so. So for example, if you have a spot on bench press, go to failure and get a spot. So that's all I really have to say on training, to be honest. If you are cutting, you can pop in an extra few sessions if you really want. And I do recommend hitting your 10k steps regardless of what you're doing, whether that's cutting, bulking, etc. Just hit your 10k steps. It helps you stay lean, and it's just good for you overall. That's all I would say on this one. If you guys want me to go more in depth into any of the points I have just discussed, for example the diet or the training, just let me know and I'll create a video on that. I appreciate you guys tapping in. Make sure you subscribe.